who are the sons of God in Genesis 6 and what are the Nephilim? And so I mentioned this in the Bible in a Year video, and I did a short on it, but I thought I'd unpack it a little bit more to help it make sense. And so in Genesis 6, 1-4, we get this weird story that describes sons of God taking daughters of men as wives, and it being something negative, something bad is happening here. And so there are a number of different interpretations. One is that the sons of God are Seth's descendants. And so we know that Adam and Eve had 3 children. Abel died and so was replaced by Seth. And Seth's family line were all very godly people. They followed God and they were obedient to God. And so the men in Seth's family line are described as sons of God. In a similar way, Cain's family line are all ungodly. And so the women of that family line are then described as daughters of men. This is according to this theory, this hypothesis. And so the idea is that the men from Seth's line marry the women from Cain's line, and it kind of contaminates Seth's godly line. It kind of makes them more and more wicked, which is why the earth is getting more and more wicked. My issue with this is that the whole kind of narrative point of these passages is that Seth's line and Cain's line are to be contrasted. They're meant to be considered like, this is what godly people do, this is what ungodly people do. And so to merge those two kind of defeats the point of that contrast. And so I don't find this convincing. Another theory is that these are human kings or human rulers of the time. And so they set themselves up as, hey, I am a son of the gods, and therefore I get to be your king, and therefore I get to have multiple wives. And so the issue here was that they were taking multiple wives for themselves, and that this was considered immoral. Again, I would push back on this because I think this misunderstands the Old Testament usage of the term sons of God. See, one of the main times that we see the phrase sons of God being used, it's almost always to be spiritual beings. And so we've mentioned it multiple times, but that passage, Job 1-2, the members of God's council are described as sons of God, and so they're spiritual beings in mind here. Similarly, Psalm 82 is a psalm about God kind of bringing judgment on rebellious spiritual beings. And these are described as sons of the Most High. And so we've got this framework of spiritual beings being described as the sons of God. And so what is happening here is we have the sons of God, spiritual beings, sleeping with human women. There's this contrast between sons of God being spiritual beings and sons or daughters of man being human beings. And so sons of God take for themselves wives of human beings. And the reason they do this is humanity has just lost its immortality, right? God has taken immortality away from them. And the idea being that if spirit beings and human beings came together, they would hopefully produce hybrid spirit human beings, and that these hybrid beings would either be immortal or would at least live much longer. And we know this because the very next verse has God declaring that no one will live any longer than 120 years. And so it's like God is closing that loophole that they've just tried to use and abuse. And so that's the sons of God. And then their descendants, these half human, half spirit beings, are known as the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were giant warrior heroes. And I use the word giant very loosely. You hear the way that some people talk about them today, as though there's these giant beasts like out of something from Attack on Titan, that they're 15 meters tall and they're misshapen looking. That's not what I mean. When I say that these guys were giant, they were 6'5" to 7, maybe even 8 foot at a push. But considering how short everyone else was at this period, that's quite a significant difference. And so they were kind of seen a little bit more like the demigods or heroes of Greek and Roman mythology. Great, strong, mighty humans. And because of how they were born, they're often associated with spiritual rebellion because they came out of spirits rebelling. And so anytime they appear or their descendants appear in the Old Testament, or even sometimes just a nation of very tall people, we get this sense of spiritual rebellion or spiritual conflict or war going on. So that's the sons of God and Nephilim. I hope you found that helpful. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. This was a snippet of a much larger conversation which you can find here, or you can get plugged in with our Bible in a Year commentary just there. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the next video.